We are welcoming our speaker all the way from Costa Rica. She spent the last 5 months working in Costa Rica, is a graduate of the University of Michigan with a degree in Bachelor of Science in Biopsychology, and then she received her Master's of Science in 2016 in Conservation Biology. Let's give a really great Oasis warm welcome to Niki Aktipis.
Is this, okay, this is on. So good morning, how is everybody? I've only been back in civilization for about 2 weeks, so excuse me. So I've come to talk to you a little bit about Turtle Conservation Day, if that's okay. Yeah. So there you go, Turtles of the Caribbean. That's where I was. So yes, Costa Rica. So I spent 5 months in Costa Rica working with leatherback sea turtles for the most part from March until the end of July. So Costa Rica is one of the smallest countries, but it's also one of the most biologically diverse countries in the world, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, there's some stuff going on there that I'll tell you a little bit about later that might make you a little bit sad and might make you change on how your eating behaviors are. So it's a major Spanish-speaking country. So if you can imagine, I'm from the States. Our foreign language here in public education is not very good. So I went there with not knowing much Spanish. So I can tell you now, I can tell you where there's a turtle on the beach. I can tell you what she's doing. Before that, all I knew was hola, gato, and como está. That was it. So my vocabulary is a little bit more expanded now. So that was a major issue for me going there, not knowing the language. Also, it's one of the most stable countries. Well, it is the most stable country in Central America. The other two are not doing too well right now. So things are really expensive there. So the cost of living are really expensive. Fortunately for me, I was taken care of. I was living in the jungle, so I didn't really have any expenses. So where I was working was called Estación Las Tortugas, or the Turtle Station in English. So it's about 40 miles north of Limon. You really can't tell on this map right here. So I was in between here and here. And as you can see, there's no towns right there, but that's where I was. So it took 45 minutes from the nearest town to drive to the dock, where I then had to get on a boat for another 20 minutes into the jungle, and that's where I was. So there was no help. If something happened to you, you were probably going to die there, which I was willing to do, no problem. So this is what isolation looks like. As you can see, it's very beautiful. Like I was telling you, I had to take a boat there, and this is our lagoon where the giant alligator lived. So there was no swimming in the lagoon. We actually had some people many years ago actually be eaten by this alligator. So there was no swimming in the lagoon for that reason, and there was also no swimming in the ocean because the rip tides were very bad. Also, there were lots of barracudas and sharks and Portuguese man-of-war. So even if you survived the rip currents, you were probably going to be eaten by something, and preferably, I'm not about that, so. So where my beach was called Mondonguillo, Playa Mondonguillo. So why this beach? So this beach is very special. So about 20 years ago, my big boss, Stanley Rodriguez, started this program, and when he started this program, there was 100% poaching on this beach. So that means all eggs from the leatherbacks were taken, so no new generations for many, many years. All the turtles, so all the smaller turtles, the greens and the hawksbills were taken. They were poached right off the beach, because the smaller turtles, poachers just carry them away. With the leatherbacks, they just take the eggs. So 20 years ago, there was 100% poaching. Now, this year, we were down to no poached nest, which is fantastic. First time in the history of the project, no poached nests. So that's one major reason. Also, all beaches in Costa Rica are public. So if you have a turtle nesting beach, why not protect it? because anybody can come on those beaches. They can do anything to those animals. So why not protect it? And the project itself is local run. So my boss is Costa Rican. So like I said, he started the project 20 years ago. The family that I worked with is his family. They live on site. So it's local-based management. And that's a really big issue with conservation, is that conservationists don't think about the cultures they go into many times. And that's a really big issue because there's a lot of pushback. So this project's really special because we were working with I was working with locals. They were working with me. So it was a privilege for me to go in there and work with the locals who actually these animals belong to. So what is there to be done? What is a typical day like at the station? Well, let me tell you, work here is pretty much 24/7. We got maybe one night off a week, if we were lucky. So during the day, the first month, we built the hatchery. So if you see the hatchery right here, it's not a very good picture. I'm sorry, guys. But we built the hatchery. So we built the hatchery all by hand. So we would have to, every day for about 4 hours, we would dig holes in a very systematic manner and chlorinate about 100 meters worth of beach for this hatchery. And this is where we would put the nest. And so after we're done building the hatchery, we had to maintain it. So we had to clean it, check and see if anybody's come and poached the nest during the night that are in there, stuff like that. And also during the day, we also did data deciphering and entry. So when I mean deciphering, so I guess if you are in the sciences, you often think when you're in school, everything's going to be perfect. The data sheets are always going to be filled out correctly. Everybody's going to have perfect handwriting, and it's going to be fantastic. No. Let me tell you, people's handwriting is crap. You have to decipher what they wrote the night before in the dark. And there's a lot of shouting and crying and saying, why didn't you fill this out correctly? And then you enter it into the computer. And so in a second, I will show you the data sheet. So that was part of my job. I was the enforcer. So I went around and was like, why did you not fill this out right? Why is there not a time on this? Where did you find this turtle? Please tell me so I can do my job. And often this was done in broken Spanish. So it was very complicated. And another part of the job was group and tourist interaction. So I was in charge of the education center as well, which I'll tell you a little bit more about. But we also got tourists from just about every corner of the universe. So it was mostly Americans or gringos. I don't mean to offend anybody by that, but that's what they called us there. So I was in charge of taking students around and telling them, this is a turtle. This is what turtles do. Please don't touch that. That's poisonous. And no, nobody's dead. Nobody's died yet, so that's good. Like I feel like I did my job, right? And we also did excavation. So when I said hatchery maintenance, the excavations were actually part of that. So if you see down here, this day we had a group doing it, which was fantastic. But after the eggs would hatch, we would have to then dig up the nest and open stinky, rotten eggs. So if you've ever had rotten chicken eggs in your fridge, has anybody ever smelled that? How awful that is? Yeah, this was like 10 times worse. Because they were in the ground for 60 days. And so they smelled like turtle and they smelled like rotting death, and it was fantastically disgusting. And we had to open them up and check them to see the stages of development. And just other various tidbits as well. So you see me here. I feel like I was supposed to be doing something when somebody was taking that picture. I feel like I was just hiding from work at that point. But we often built things. So we built our own dorms. So the dorms I lived in, I had to build. And I helped build outdoor toilets for all the scouts that came. Well, I didn't personally do all of this. My associates helped as well. But that was during the day. So you imagine you're up for about 12 hours. You're doing all this out in the hot sun. And then by night, you had to go onto the beach and you had to look for turtles. So that was the big part of it, was looking for the turtles. So what we do is from 8 to about 3 o'clock in the morning, we go out in the dark, on the dark, dark beach, and we look for turtles. So have you ever tried to find anything in the complete pitch black? Yeah. We can't use lights either because it frightens the turtles. So for about 6 hours every night, we would go out looking for turtles. And this is what I would take with me. So I would take my nice little backpack, my passport, so if the Coast Guard stopped me, my measuring equipment, tagging equipment, gloves, if I wanted to touch a turtle, and then this lovely data sheet that I was telling you about, that's completely in Spanish. So the biggest thing I had to do when I was looking for turtles was I'd walk up and down the beach 3 kilometers every night, and I would look for tracks on the beach. So I'd look out towards the ocean and see if there was a faint track. When the moon was just right, you could see them. It was beautiful. But in the pitch black, pouring rain, you couldn't see anything. So occasionally you would get lucky and you might trip on a turtle. My boss doesn't know this. Maybe if she sees this online, I've actually fallen butt first onto a turtle in front of people while looking for turtles. Now the secret's out. I can tell that I held that in. There was gas. And so we looked for these turtles. Why were we looking for these turtles? Like I told you earlier, we have a big poaching problem. So with leatherbacks, the biggest problem is they take the eggs and they eat the eggs. So once we got the eggs, we collected the eggs from her. We took them back to the hatchery and buried them. End of story. They don't touch the big turtles because these turtles grow up to 1,000 pounds. But like I said, with the hawksbills and the green turtles, they would just carry the whole turtle away. So if we spotted one of the smaller ones, we would have to stay with that turtle until she was finished laying and back in the ocean. And this could take literal hours. I actually had to stay with the turtle for 3 hours once, and she decided to take a nap in the middle of the beach on her way back. And I went back to my room and just cried after that. I'm done. I'm done with turtles, but I was back out the next night. And there's also hatchery patrol. So on top of looking for turtles, during hatchling season, we also had to patrol the hatchery for hatchlings. Because as you saw in this last slide, we have cages over the top of every nest to protect any hatchlings from being eaten by anything that might like to find them tasty, which is literally everything. So literally everything likes to eat baby turtles. And so we'd have to go and check all these cages, and usually they would come up 1 or 2 at a time, but if you had 3 or 4 with 50 babies each, you would start crying. I cried often, because you would have to measure them and weigh them and then toss them in the ocean, or you want to toss them in the ocean. So I was telling you what I was looking for in the dark. So this is one of my fantastic turtles that I had to look for in the dark. So these guys, they come up in the dark because it's safer for them. And this is a leatherback. So this is what the majority of the time what I saw. Well, I didn't see actually. So this was on our beach, and actually one of our neighbors sent this to us. So this is one of our turtles, but somebody else got to work her. So you can imagine, they're all black. Leatherbacks are all black, and they're not very descript. So you can imagine looking for one of these in the dark, how hard this would be. So you see her track right there. Actually, that's what we'd look for when she would come up. So by the waves, we would look for that in the dark or any disturbance in the sand. So these guys, what makes them really special is, you guys have all seen sea turtles, right? You've been down to the aquarium here. Yes? No? Maybe? So what makes these guys really special is they're not your average turtle, so they're my size. Can you imagine that? They're 5 feet tall, and that's not including their head and their tail. And they can weigh up to about 1,000 pounds. So you can imagine why poachers aren't going to carry these guys away, and they might carry the smaller ones away. So we did a lot of community and global outreach. So as I was saying earlier, I was in charge of the education center. So I took groups around, I was a tour guide basically, and I would tell them, look at this nice little dead turtle in a jar, isn't that cool? Please don't, when you go home, please don't take any turtle products with you. To me, tourists, yes, important for that, yeah. But when the locals came, it was especially important because these animals belong to them, right? So these animals belong to them. And we taught them that, look, there are different, you can do better than poaching, right? You can do better than poaching. Instead of poaching, you can come work for us, right? You can come work for us and protect these turtles and show the world that there's something special here and that these animals belong to you. And without these animals, what are you going to do? You're going to have no revenue. What are you going to eat? What are you going to show people? Are you just going to show the world that Costa Rica just destroys their wildlife? And after these kids would come, because usually they were about 13 or 14, and they would say, you know what, I'm not going to eat turtle meat anymore, or I'm going to tell my uncle that, poaching is wrong and he should be doing something else. And to me, that was more important than teaching Americans that these turtles exist, because this is their lives. They live there, and they want to come back. They want to protect these turtles. They want to protect their home, and they want to show the world that there's something special about Costa Rica. And that, to me, was more important than teaching my people, because there's other stuff for us here to learn about than to go to Costa Rica and be like, oh, that's a nice turtle. That's a nice, It's still important, but it's more important to have the locals involved, in my opinion. So hatchlings. Hatchlings were a big part of my job for the past 2 months. So like I said before, there was hatchlings every day, all day, everywhere. And so after 2 months, hatchlings come up. Depending on the nest, depending on the weather, there's about a 50% chance that these guys are going to hatch. So with other reptiles, it's 90 to 100% that all the eggs hatch. With leatherbacks, it's a little bit different. So when we had a lot of baby turtles, it was really special, because that means we're doing something right, that we're protecting these nests. So every 2 hours, we would have to check the hatchery for babies, because when it's sunny out, they usually come out at night. But on occasion, we would have them come out during the day, which is really dangerous for these guys, because if they're left out in the sun, they will fry and they will die. I have seen it happen. So we had to check every 2 hours, and we would collect them up, put them in a box, and wait for night to release them. So that's, as you can see right there, there's my boxes of baby turtles. We harvested earlier in the day, and this was at sunset. We went and dropped them off. And that's me weighing and measuring. So why do you think we would weigh and measure them? Anybody? Any hands? Data, yes. Yes, why? Why though? What kind of data? Population health, yeah? Yes, exactly. We had somebody actually doing an experiment on egg and weight size compared to hatchling size and weight. So if these guys aren't healthy and they're not strong enough, they're not going to survive, and we're not going to have a next generation for them. So this was also in combination with predation rates. Was there fungus in the nest? And we're trying every year to make better conditions for hatching. And we had pretty good nests this year. Many of our nests were 70 to 80% hatch rate. And like I said earlier, it's usually 50%, so it's fantastic. So hopefully we're doing something to bump up the populations for these guys. So this is my video. So I figured if it works, let's see if it works. So I don't know if you can see it really well, but these are some of our hatchlings we released, and they're going out towards the ocean. So with these guys, they nest in the middle of the beach, so that's where we release them. It doesn't matter where their nest was, we just chuck them out into the middle of the beach, and they make their way to the ocean. And so they have to make their way back to the ocean on their own, so they can imprint on that beach. Leatherbacks, unlike other turtles, aren't very faithful to what beach they go back to, as long as it's in the same general area, whereas a green or a hawksbill will come back to the exact place where they hatched and nest. So our turtles, we could have a turtle that comes up where I was 1 year, and then in 2 or 3 years, it could go down to Panama or up to Nicaragua and nest. But it's very important that they make their way back so they know how to find their way back to the general area in which they were born to nest. So why does this all matter to you guys? I know you guys don't live by the ocean at all, but how many people eat fish? How many of you guys eat fish? Everybody eats fish? Okay. So leatherbacks are really important to us because they eat jellyfish. So what do you guys think jellyfish eat? Anybody know? They eat larval fish. So if leatherbacks disappear, that means the jellyfish population expands, right? And they're going to eat more larval fish, and there are going to be less fish for us, right? So it's really important that we keep these guys around because they're helping us protect our food source. And also just future sustainability. So we don't want to fish them out. We don't want to kill off all the turtles, because if we kill off all the turtles, then what is the source of income for the Costa Ricans? Or what is the source of entertainment for us if we want to go to Costa Rica and see a turtle? Well, they're not going to be there, so we want to keep them around. And there's also an intrinsic right for them to just exist. So just like there's a right for us to exist, there's a right for these turtles to exist, and a right for anything, any living creature to exist. And to me, that's the most important. But oftentimes, I can't convince people that something has an intrinsic right to exist. So I have to convince people that they have an economic value, which I do successfully, sometimes unsuccessfully. We'll see. I don't know yet. But to me, the right to exist is the most important. And if you think you have a right to exist, then these guys have a right to exist as well. So what can you do? So what can you do to help these guys out, or help anything out in general? Any other animal, any other yourself even. So you can be informed. So read articles. So keep up on environmental news. Research just what chemicals are good or bad for the environment. Just generally just be informed, right? So maybe even organize lake cleanups or stream cleanups, or you guys have a river here, right? Yeah, and all rivers run into the ocean, right? So organize cleanups, organize something, do something. You know, it takes maybe an hour or 2 hours of your day to go organize something and pick up trash. It's no problem, right? There's a really good program. It's called World Oceans Day. So I think it's on June 8th of every year. So maybe next year you guys can organize an Oceans Day and have like a stream or a river event. And it's just, informing people of what good the ocean does for all of us, or what good the waterways do for all of us. Also, just go out and advocate better environmental policies, right? In your local or, state governments. I don't know if any of you guys know about the plastic bag tax in the UK. Yeah? It's been 1 year, right? It's been 1 year since it's been in place, and people were very livid about this. They're like, oh, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. 6 billion bags. 6 billion bags in the last year have not been used because of that tax. That's fantastic. 6 billion bags that are not out in the ocean or in landfills. That's fantastic. Why are we not doing that? So go advocate to your state or local government. Be like, we need this. Look at this evidence. It is working, and that's going to save us. If you don't think about other organisms, it's going to save us. If you want to be selfish, think about yourself. It's going to save you in the long run. And even microbeads. So everybody knows about microbeads now, right? They're in everything. Well, fish eat those when they get in the water. And what do we eat? We eat fish. And what are those? It's extra chemicals in our bodies. So go and advocate to your local government. Write to your local government and say, hey, look, we need to do something about this. We need to either put a tax on it or we need to ban it because it's not good for us and it's not good for business. And also just shop responsibly and sustainably. So check out Seafood Watch Guide. It's going to tell you what fish are good to eat, what foods to stay away from, and what are good alternatives to what you already eat now. I have this debate often with my mom about shrimp farms, because I don't eat shrimp anymore unless I know where it comes from. A lot of our food nowadays is from India or China in they're farmed fish or farmed shrimp, and it's destroying mangroves, and it's not good. So just be informed about what you're eating. And it's not gonna, it's one person, yes, it's going to be helpful, but if all of us do it, or if we all try, it's gonna help out a lot. And just the cliche, reduce, reuse, recycle. So plastic bags, plastic bottles, plastic Tupperware containers, reuse them, recycle them, find a good use for them. Because otherwise they're just gonna end up in landfills, or they're gonna end up in the belly of fish, or turtles, and then it's gonna come back to you. Because you're gonna eat those animals, and it's gonna come back to you. So this is my shameless book plug. They're back there. So I have a little question and answer book that my mom helped me put together, and all proceeds go towards me going back to Costa Rica next year. So if anybody would like a copy, please come talk to me later, and I would gladly appreciate your help. And I think that's it. So if you guys have any questions, I would appreciate it.
We only have a couple minutes for questions here, so.
I'm better at questions than I am with, I promise.
I was just wondering how long it takes for the leatherback turtles to come back and start laying eggs.
That's a good question. So right now, the research is showing 24 to 27 years before they sexually mature. And they're not the longest sexually maturing animals. I think that belongs to loggerheads, which it takes about 30 to 35 years.
Can you speak about, real fast, the economics of poaching? What are they getting from the poaching, and what are they actually using the poaching for?
Okay.
And then how is the community paid for? Who pays for this to occur?
Okay, so with the poaching, that's a very good question. So with the poaching, it depends on the species. With the leatherbacks, it's mainly just the eggs, because the meat apparently is not very delicious. But with the green turtles and the hawksbills, they use just about everything. So they'll use the bones to make anything with the greens. They'll eat the meat. They'll harvest the eggs from the turtles. And with the hawksbills, they make jewelry. So if you guys go to Costa Rica and you want to buy jewelry and it looks like tortoiseshell, please ask. Please ask if it's made out of turtle, because if it is, first off, it's illegal. You might get caught in customs with it, and you want to come home. I want you to come home. And second of all, that used to belong to a turtle, and it's illegal. It's not good. And the economic gain for them is, well, a lot of these people that poach, they're poor. So personally, I can't stand up here and be like, oh, poaching is awful, like, they're awful people. They're not awful people. They're trying to provide for their families. And if there are no other job opportunities for them, what are they supposed to do, right? So by creating projects and saying, hey, we're going to hire you to find nests for us or to protect these turtles, that's better than saying, well, we can't do anything for you, but you shouldn't poach turtles, right? And so people in general in Costa Rica that don't know better, they eat the turtle eggs, they'll buy creams with turtle fat in it, they'll buy the jewelry, they'll sell the jewelry to tourists that don't know better, and it's just being uninformed. And like I said, when we have local groups that come to the station, sometimes they don't know anything about turtles, and we tell them, there's like, we didn't know that was happening, I don't want to do that anymore, how can I help? And to me, that's the best part of my day, is when somebody who's local says that to me. I said, okay, let me help you. Let's stay in contact. I'm going to help you. Please, that's what I want to do.
You were saying that you had a lot of trouble finding the turtles when it was pitch black out there. Is it within the budget of your project to get night vision goggles? I know that sounds... I was a research biologist, but I was also in the Army, and I got to play with night vision goggles. So they were pretty cool. They might help you guys not trip over the turtles.
I wish that was in our budget. This is actually, I shouldn't probably say this, but we actually didn't even have money to buy batteries for our thermocouples this year. So we're really underfunded, and it's a really big issue because we fight for every bit of material that we have. So I love night vision goggles, but we're extremely underfunded. No, I wish. Trust me, there are plenty of things I would like money for, but yes, we're underfunded. No, I appreciate it. I think about it. I'm like, oh, God, I have to go out again with my little red torch. Yeah.
How big are the baby turtles whenever they're first hatched?
So with the leatherbacks, they're about 6 centimeters long. So they're about as long as my hand. So if you can imagine, like, going from the length of your hand to something that's as tall, well, I'm not very tall, so I shouldn't even say that, but something that's 5 feet long, 1,000 pounds, from 6 inches, or 6 centimeters. That's, to me, is incredible. And I tell people all the time, I didn't know what love was until I met a baby turtle. Because the first time I saw a baby turtle, I didn't know what to do with myself. I squealed and I started crying, and they had to calm me down. It was ridiculous.
One more question right here.
Do you want to ask?
If somebody like me was to go to Costa Rica, and are there any other things that we should look out for as far as poaching and illegal activity other than the turtles, or?
That's a good question. So for me right now, I, for the most part, just know about the turtles, but anywhere that lets you handle animals as well. So if you want to go to a rescue center and they're going to let you pet a baby monkey, don't do it. They're not a rescue center. They're just in it for profit. You want to go to places where you can look but don't touch, unless you're volunteering. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. All right, another big round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you.